Hello, welcome to In Studio. I'm Ian Butterfield, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use a light tent to photograph products so that you can sell them on eBay. A couple of videos back I showed you how to create images using a light tent of products which had reflections, and in that video I showed how I used 3 studio lights, each fitted with a softbox. Now I'm very aware that not everyone will have access to that kind of kit, but you may still want to be able to do product shots, particularly if you're trying to sell something on eBay. So how would you do it on a budget? Well, a light tent is worth investing. If you are likely to be selling a lot of things on eBay, then think about investing in a light tent. It will mean that you can get some really nice images of your products. You won't have problems with reflections. You'll have some nice even lighting on there, lovely white backgrounds, all that kind of thing. Regarding lighting though, you don't need to invest in studio lights as I was using in the previous video. You could use speed lights, external flash guns and triggers, but you don't even need to go that far. You can get away with what I've got here, which is just a pair of desk lights, just clamped to my desk, pointing straight at the light tent. One either side is the ideal way to do it. We've got light coming in, it will bounce around all inside the light tent and give you that lovely, soft, reflectionless finish to your products that you're photographing. Now, for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to be photographing my iPod. I'm not actually going to be selling it on eBay, but if I was, I would want to make this look as attractive as possible for potential buyers. Now, I could just put it down on a piece of card and photograph it, but I thought it'd be much nicer to have it standing up, nicely lit and rather attractive. So how do you stand an iPod up? It's just going to fall over. The solution, and one of the most valuable things to have in a photographic studio, is just a little piece of plasticine. And what I've done is I've just molded it into the shape of a little wedge like that. I can then place that in the light box and just rest the iPod against that. So that's the iPod in place. Next thing, what lens am I going to use and what settings on the camera? Well, I could use my normal lens on here, which is what I've got on at the moment. If I had access to a macro lens, that would be a better choice because I can get in a little bit closer with the product and get a nicer image that way. With this, if I take a photo of the iPod now, you'll see that it really doesn't fill the frame. That's as close in as I can get with it. Whereas if I was to put the macro lens on, I'd be able to zoom in, I say zoom in, I'd be able to move in closer and get a much tighter image, a tighter shot on the iPod. So I will actually swap over to the macro lens. Okay, so that's the macro lens on there. Now you'll notice I've put the camera at an angle. Now there's a very good reason for doing this. When you are trying to photograph an oblong object within an oblong frame of the image, if you have the angle slightly out, it will look odd. So you've got to get everything perfect. I've really struggled to do that. So my solution is, let's put it on a quirky angle, then I don't have to worry too much about getting everything lining up and it will look good. It also makes the product stand out just that little bit from everybody else's, which is just an iPod lying on a piece of white card or just lying on a table. So that's why it's at an angle. The settings on the camera I'm going to be shooting in aperture priority mode. That's AV on a Canon, A on a Nikon. And in that mode, if you don't know, the camera will choose the correct shutter speed for the aperture that I select. Now I'm selecting an aperture of f8. Why f8? That's where most lenses are at their sharpest. It also gives me a reasonable depth of field to get the product in focus. And with that setting, the camera is telling me that I'm going to need a shutter speed of about half a second. That's not a problem when I'm on tripod, and that's one of the reasons I'm on tripod. The other reason I've put the camera on tripod is it allows me to compose that image with a lot better than if it was just handheld. I think about my composition when I've got my camera on tripod. But over and above that, it's absolutely essential at half a second that I have it on tripod, because there's no way I'm going to be able to hold the camera steady for that length of time. There is one other setting I need to put onto the camera, and that's exposure compensation. Exposure compensation tells the camera to change its exposure over what it's worked out for itself. The reason I have to do that is we're dealing with an area that's predominantly white. And we've got, in my case, a fairly light coloured iPod, and it's silver. And the camera is going to try and make everything look like a mid-grey colour. So to get around that, I'm going to tell it, just lighten it all up so that that background is light. And I'm going to put in just over a stop to a stop and a half's worth of exposure compensation. I've put the exposure compensation in, so now I'm just going to do a quick test shot. And you can hear how long the shutter took on that. It's possibly a little bit bright. I'm just going to dial back the exposure compensation. So one stop, another test shot. That's looking great with one stop of exposure compensation in there. I'm getting some strange reflections off there, so the answer to that will be eventually to pull down the front of the light cube and the light tent and shoot through the slit. But before I do that, there's another thing I want to do. Well, instead of just having a blank iPod, I'd like to actually have something on the display. Now, I need to choose something appropriate. I'm a photographer. As of yet, I don't have my own icon for podcasts or anything like that, but there is a podcast that I listen to and I thoroughly recommend, and that's the Martin Bailey podcast, photography podcast. So I'm going to put that on the display and take the photo with it. Now, the top of the display is scrolling and it pauses for about half a second. So I just take my shot at the point that it pauses so that it's not a blur of text across the top. And that's looking like a reasonable image to me. So I know that that's working. So now I'm going to bring down the front cover, cut out those extra reflections. So there we have the final image of the iPod ready to go up on eBay for sale using a relatively cheap light tent, actually bought off eBay, 2 desk lights and no studio equipment other than a tripod. I've used a macro lens, as I say, not essential to you. That. Hope this has been of assistance to anyone looking to create product shots for eBay. Thanks for watching this video cast. Stay tuned for future videos from In Studio. Thank you and goodbye.
This has been an in-studio video presentation by Ian M. Butterfield. All content and photographs are copyright Ian M. Butterfield and may not be reproduced without prior permission. For more information, including how to subscribe to this and other videos, please visit www.ians-studio.co.uk/videos. Thank you.